What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another video here with the Miami Dolphins team breakdown, so let's get right into it. Last season for the Dolphins, they went 11-6, which was second in the AFC East and sixth in the AFC, and ended up losing the wild card round of the playoffs. So overall, pretty successful season for the Dolphins. Did end up making the playoffs, but obviously didn't go anywhere. So in that regards, could have been a letdown season depending on what your expectations for the Dolphins were. Personally, I had pretty high expectations for the Dolphins. I think that they have one of the better rosters in the NFL, and in my opinion, Tua is a lot better of a quarterback than a lot of people give him credit for. I think he is up there for maybe not one of the best, but he's definitely up in that conversation of top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. Looking at how the team has changed from last season, starting with the losses, there are a lot of them, and some of them are pretty major. Mainly defensively, looking at the defensive losses, Christian Wilkins is a big one. One of the better players on that defense and on that team. Ended up losing him to the Raiders. Also on the defensive line, losing Raekwon Davis, Emmanuel Ogbah, and Justin Houston. And then losing a pair of linebackers as well in Andrew Van Ginkel and Jerome Baker. And then it doesn't end there, losing a lot of secondary players as well. Deshaun Elliott, Eli Apple, and the main one, Xavier Howard. The other two, more depth pieces. But overall, it is a lot of losses on the defensive side of the ball that, just created a lot of needs for this team on the defense. Offensively, really only losing Robert Hunt. Also lost Cedric Wilson and Chase Claypool, which is just wide receiver depth. But this is an offense that really just focused mainly on Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, so not huge losses there. The loss of Robert Hunt as well as center Connor Williams, though, did create a pretty big hole in the interior of the offensive line, so another thing that needs to be addressed. Looking at the additions for the Dolphins, I think they actually did a pretty good job filling in all the holes that were created by those departures. Starting with the defense, bringing in Jordan Brooks, as well as Anthony Walker at linebacker, addressing the secondary with Jordan Poyer, Marcus May, and Kendall Fuller. I think that gives you 3 starters in the secondary. You would still have Jalen Ramsey there, so Jalen Ramsey, Kendall Fuller makes a really good CB duo. And then, obviously, Jordan Poyer and Marcus May, 2 starting safeties, in my opinion. Maybe not incredible at this point in their careers, but definitely solid enough. Also bringing in Shaq Barrett, Jonathan Harris, and Tier Tart on the defensive side of the ball, so just bringing in a lot of the depth that was lost. Offensively, addressing the offensive line with center Aaron Brewer, and then addressing wide receiver with Odell Beckham Jr., as well as bringing in Jonnu Smith. Now, as I mentioned before, the Dolphins mainly focus on Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. In particular, they have not really featured a tight end, so I don't know how big of an addition Jonnu Smith will end up being. However, I do think Odell will be a good addition for this team. I think he is still a really talented receiver. Obviously, nowhere close to his prime, but I think that he will still definitely be a good addition for this team and definitely have a good role next season. Looking at the draft class, in the first round, getting Chop Robinson, addressing the edge position, just bringing in another edge guy to really help boost the pass rush, and the Dolphins, who are kind of redoing their entire defense this offseason, just adding in just more power to kind of get back to having a solid defense. Ended up losing a lot of guys, but I think they've rebuilt it pretty well. Second round, getting Patrick Paul, adding to the offensive line. Should be solid at tackle. And then down the board, adding Jalen Wright. Not too sure. Obviously, you ended up drafting Devon Achane last year, and you have Raheem Mostert on roster as well, who had a good season last year, but I don't know how big of a role he will play this season. So Jalen Wright probably will have a little bit of a role this season, but I don't know if he's going to be a major contributor on this team. And then down the board, some receiver depth with 2 Washingtons, funnily enough, and then adding linebacker and defensive back as well. More just depth pieces than anything else. Looking at the Dolphins' opponents for next season, playing in the AFC East, it is a competitive division. The Bills and Jets in particular, I think are going to be two very tough teams. The Patriots kind of depends on how well Drake May performs his rookie season. Personally, I don't think the Patriots are going to be super competitive, but it is possible. In addition to their divisional games, they played the AFC South and NFC West. So the Titans, Jaguars, Colts, Texans, 49ers, Seahawks, Cardinals, Rams. But those two divisions, some tough games in there as well. Namely, the 49ers and Texans are two of the top teams in the NFL right now. But those other teams could also be competitive as well. And then in addition to those, playing the Raiders, Browns, and Packers. The Raiders, not too sure how they're going to be next season, but the Browns and Packers are both going to be most likely competitive and could also be tough games for the Dolphins. Looking at a ceiling for this team, I have it 12-5. In this scenario, I have them splitting the Bills and Jets while sweeping the Patriots, and then beating the Titans, Jaguars, Cardinals, and Raiders at home while losing to the 49ers, and then beating the Colts, Rams, Browns, and Seahawks away while losing to the Texans and Packers. As I mentioned earlier, I do think the Dolphins are a pretty good team. I think Tua is a much better quarterback than he kind of gets credit for. So I do think that they can definitely contend for the division title. I think it is a tough division as well, though, so could obviously end up going 12-5 and being a wildcard team. On the other side of things, I have their floor at 9-8. Still a winning record for the Dolphins. I do think they will finish the season with a winning record. But there are some tougher games on the schedule, so they could end up being at a lower win total. In this scenario, I have them splitting all their divisional games and then beating the Titans, Jaguars, Cardinals, and Raiders at home while losing to the 49ers, and then away losing a lot more games here to the Colts, Texans, Browns, and Packers while beating the Rams and Seahawks. Overall, I don't think this is incredibly unlikely. However, I do think the Dolphins will perform better than this. There are just a lot of tougher games on this schedule, and a lot that could go either way. As for my prediction, I do have it at that ceiling of 12-5. I guess am higher on the Dolphins than a lot of people are. I feel like I have been for a while, and maybe that's my mistake. But I do think that they are going to be a pretty good team. I think they can contend for the division. I don't know how they'll stack up in terms of the rest of the AFC. It is obviously a very talented conference, and I don't know if the Dolphins are up at that top tier of teams, which the AFC definitely has a lot of. But obviously I already covered the scenario in the ceiling. And yeah, that's all I have to say for the Dolphins about next season. I think they will be a good team. But yeah, let me know if you have any other thoughts. Agree, disagree with anything. Let me know in the comments. And if you liked the content, feel free to subscribe. And thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.